or exactly, I have to say, 22 years ago, in March 2000, the first meditation teacher of Nilambe, Godwin Samararatne, passed away. So there is a custom or a tradition in Nilambe that we commemorate that death anniversary every year, and that takes place in Nilambe. Many people from the Kandy and Peradeniya area participate in that event. Family members of Godwin, friends of Godwin, also monks and nuns, people from the Peradeniya University. But of course, this year that is not possible because of the reason that we all know, Corona. So that is why we hold this commemoration online on the third day of this retreat. And we keep it, especially, we hold it at the end of the retreat. And we have called it an evening of gratefulness. So what is going to happen is that some of us, and there are not so many, but a couple of participants who have known Godwin personally, they will share their experiences and share their impressions of Godwin. And then afterwards, we can all share our gratitude and our experiences with our own teachers, spiritual teachers, guides on the path to liberation, you could say, or to awakening, or to happiness. And we can start with one person that I would like to invite to share his experiences with Godwin. He has participated in this event, in this retreat. His name is Ewan Arnold. And for those of you who don't know Ewan, I would like to briefly introduce him. Ewan was a student of Godwin and also of Upul. He lives in Kandy, in Hantana, a suburb of Kandy. He has been teaching English in the British Council. He's British. And he also conducts retreats in Nilambe regularly. So he can share with us from his own experience his impressions with Godwin. But first of all, I forgot something to say in the beginning. First of all, I want to say that I was really touched by the compilation of slides of Godwin and also his talk this morning. So I would really like to thank Claudia. She's the one who compilated it and who created this beautiful presentation. It really touched my heart. So thank you very much, Claudia. I'm sure many people, many people appreciated it, and many people very much enjoyed it. So thank you. That's the first thing I would like to say. So Ewan, if you are ready, I don't know, I can't see you at the moment. Yes, he's there. Okay, he's waving. Hi, Ewan. So please feel free to share your experiences with Godwin.
Yeah, it was really beautiful listening to Godwin's voice again. I haven't heard his voice for quite a while. And especially his laugh. one of the things I remember most, I think, is sitting in the meditation hall with Godwin, sitting where he always sat. If you know the meditation hall in Nilambe, he used to sit on the left of where the statue is now, the big statue is. There was a little seat where he sat and he gave his talks and he meditated from there. And his laugh reminded me, I mean, there are so many things I'm grateful for. I was a complete mess when I met Godwin. Maybe I'm still a complete mess, but it doesn't feel like that now. I think if I hadn't met him, I would probably have died of cirrhosis of the liver some years ago. He was the most completely selfless person I have ever met. He had no agenda at all, as far as I could work out, apart from wanting to help other beings. There was no attempt to impress or manipulate or persuade people of anything. He had no agenda of his own, as far as I could see. And that is an incredibly rare and special thing. He was completely authentic. That's a word maybe I was looking for. And I want to tie that in with his laugh in some way as well. He had the ability to laugh at himself, the ability to laugh at the absurdities that our mind comes up with. And one example, I remember again, he was sitting, this is only a few months before he died. He came into the meditation hall. I'd been sitting meditating with a group of people, and he had a bandage around his head. I don't know if Paul or Rupal were there on this occasion or not, but there was a big white bandage around his head, which was kind of very obvious and a bit absurd. And he proceeded to tell a story that in the house where he'd been staying, they had, when he wanted to wash himself, wash his hair and everything, they had a large bowl of cold water and they had to heat the other water on a gas cooker, and the water was heated up and put into a metal container and brought into wherever it was, the bathroom or wherever. So he had a big container of cold water and a big container of hot water. And in amongst all of his laughter, he was trying to explain that what he had done was lifted up the hot water and poured it over his head. And he was also trying to explain he was a teacher of mindfulness. Yeah, this was one of those moments when the mindfulness deserted him. Another story came to mind while I was doing that, while I was telling that as well. I went to visit Godwin. I think he was in Rajapihila at the time, which is the road that goes up on the far side of the lake from the Temple of the Tooth. There's a road at the top of the hills. And I think there was, his family house was there. It may have been somewhere else. My memory isn't what it used to be. And this was a spiritual teacher, my spiritual teacher. I really looked up to him in all kinds of ways, and I had these models of what a spiritual teacher should be like. And somebody let me into the house, and I went through into the back room, and there he was on his hands and knees playing with the children and joking around and horse playing with the children. And that sense of fun and playfulness, the sense of humor. One of the things that I took away from Godwin was, yes, it's important. Our spiritual practice is, for me, the most important thing in my life at the moment, I think. But we don't have to take it massively seriously. There were times when Godwin took it seriously. There were times when he gave very serious talks about all kinds of matters, but he was always ready to break into laughter, to see the funny side of things. Something else I want to say as well, something that I still carry with me now as well. His whole approach to meditation was about exploring, about discovering, about finding out for yourself. I remember when I started, I had loads of questions. What is meditation? What's it all about? What's this Dharma thing? Why does the Buddha spend so much time talking about suffering? And what is awareness is one of the questions I asked him. And quite often, instead of answering the question, he would put the question back to you. When I do remember this, when I asked him, what is awareness? His answer was, are you aware? And yeah, I'm aware. So what's that like? What's that like for you? He would put you back on your own experience, turn a lot of the questions round. And it occurred to me when Upal was talking the other day about problems. One problem, Upal said, I think one problem leads to a solution, and then the solution causes another problem, which leads to another solution, and it's kind of never ending. And I think Godwin had the similar view of questions as well. Questions lead to answers, which lead to another question, which leads to another answer. And he was always wanting to put the question back, explore, look at your own experience, look at your own life, look at what's it like for you now? What are you experiencing now? What are you hearing, tasting, smelling now? And I think Godwin would really have, I listened this afternoon after I heard his voice, I listened to some of his talks again on his website, just to hear his voice. One of the things that he said, which is actually a title of a book by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I believe, one of the things he said stood out to me, and I think I'll finish with this. And it kind of fits in with quite a few things that Upal's been saying as well, or that I've been hearing. It's okay not to be okay. And I think it's okay not to be okay. I think if you want a philosophy that Godwin had, that's as pretty close as I can get. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. And thank you, Claudia, as well, for what you put together. That was really beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you so much, friend Ewan. Long-term friend Ewan. Thank you. So maybe I think of all the people who participate in this 3-day retreat, there are only 3 people who have known Godwin personally, and that's Ewan, Upal, and myself. But I might be wrong, so I'm going to have a look at everybody, am I wrong? Is there somebody else who has known Godwin personally? Please raise your hand. Okay, I'll take a look at the other people. No, nobody is raising his or her hand. I was doubting if Venerable Dhamadipa has known Godwin, but she doesn't. Have you known Godwin, sister?
Yes, yes.
I did,
but very short. I'm not qualified.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So please, would you like to share your experience?
I was. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, because I don't have a microphone or something.
We hear you perfectly.
Okay. Yes, I had the honor to meet him, but it was in the last part of his life. And I arrived in Nilambe in November '99 and stayed for 3 months. So I left, and short after that he passed away. But he was the first person I met in Nilambe. I had never been before in a meditation center, and I was very excited and a little bit anxious. And the first meeting with him, it was very comforting. He looked very sick during this time, so I was a little bit surprised to meet a person who, I had a feeling he is already very sick. But he was so kind, very calm speaking, and I was, like Ewan said, I was a mess too. My mother just passed away, and I was, like still under shocking, shocked. Even it was a normal, old age death, but I was losing the mother was something special. And then he asked me a little bit about his my meditation practice, which I didn't have. So it was more like a normal conversation. And then he softly said, "Oh, my mother also passed away." So we had a common ground, and it was very nice too. And I think I met him personally as the teacher or as the advisor there a second time, because I was sitting in the meditation hall in Nilambe. It was November. It's all people who had been there, they know it's raining, 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 raining. It's the old meditation hall was cold and dark and dark and dark. And I was so sad. I think I was crying for many, many days as a starting meditator. And then I got an appointment with him, and he was very, still very friendly. It was not a big joking. It was really, I think his body was also not so well. And then he looked a while and he said, "Why you are sitting in the meditation hall? You should go out." And I got the permission from the master to sit outside on the bench and looking to the nature. And I really appreciated deeply this lesson, to give myself permission sometimes to go out of the hall. So that was, my personal, it was not so much the personal experience with him. It was a little bit the echo what was in the other people. I think I met you, Paul. There had been other people like Jean and people who had long time with them together, 20 years or so. And it was what they reflecting and what they told. So I was more like a indirect meeting Godwin. So, and this gave me the first confidence that there is a good path, the spiritual path. So, and if I came back later to Germany after longer traveling around, I got the message that he passed away. So it was a kind of shock, and but it gave me the determination to come the next possibility to look what became out of Nilambe now. So I cannot share more. I don't have this personally long-time relationship, but I deeply appreciate that he was the motor and the founder, and his presence, I think, still is alive.
Thank you so much, sister. I am very happy that you have shared your experiences with us, really. Thank you. So I'm going to have a look at the other people. Maybe I overlooked somebody. Is there anybody else? Is there anybody else who has known Godwin personally? I know that Godwin conducted retreats in Hong Kong, and I know that there are several people participating from Hong Kong, but no. Okay, so then maybe it's my turn. Maybe I can speak a little about my experiences with Godwin. I wrote down a couple of words as a kind of how do you say that, support for what I would like to say. So maybe very briefly I can say how I came to Nilambe and how I met Godwin. I had heard from a German monk in India about Nilambe. He told me it's a wonderful place. Meditation is a way to see clearly in confusion. I still remember his words. And I thought, that's where I have to go. I want to see clearly in confusion. So I'll go there and I'll stay 1 week, and then I will see clearly and I will not be confused anymore. That was my motivation. So I took the bus, an overcrowded bus from Kandy with my backpack, from Kandy to the office junction, and I walked up the mountains and I passed the gate, and I still remember when I was standing in front of the gate, I thought, if I take one more step, there will be no way back. I knew that. I knew nothing about Buddhism. I knew nothing about meditation. I knew nothing about the so-called spiritual path. But I was thinking, if I take one more step, if I cross this line, there will no way back. There will be no way back. So I climbed up the mountain further and I arrived at the house and I thought, this is Nilambe. So I knocked on the door, but it was Solamaden's house, the gardener's house. So he took me further up to the center. And I came to the office. It was already getting dark. There was a German man in the office called Helmut. And later he became a monk. I think at the moment he's a monk in Burma. He's called Venerable Anaruddha. This is 95. I forgot to tell you, this was 1995, so 27 years ago. And Helmut brought me to a room. He gave me some candles. It was pitch dark. I took off my socks. My feet were covered with blood. I had picked up some leeches on the way. I thought, my God, this is a hell realm. I'm not going to stay here. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. First thing in the morning I do is simply leaving here. I don't want to stay here. You can't see anything. It's so primitive. There are leeches everywhere. So the next morning, I went to the meditation hall and I saw all those people sitting with their backs straight and their eyes closed without moving. I thought, what are they doing? I had no idea. What are they doing? Godwin was not there at that moment. Upul was there. Upul was taking care of the center and with some Western people that were helping him. And I decided to stay a couple of days more. And then Godwin arrived, and I had a conversation with him. And instead of 1 week, I stayed 6 weeks. So it was my intention to stay only 1 week. But after that conversation, my intention changed, and I stayed 6 weeks. And I went back to Kandy, and then I came back, and I went back to Kandy, and I came back every time. So this has lasted now 27 years. I'm still going to, although now it's already some time that I haven't been there, but I founded a Buddhist center in my home country, Belgium, and every year we go back. So altogether, I stayed maybe 4 years, 4.5 years in Nilambe. And I can say that when I have to mention 3 people who had a big impact on my life, Godwin is one of them. Not because he said so much. He didn't use many words. He spoke very little. He was a quiet man. But he spoke through, he was the embodiment of the Dhamma, basically. He didn't have to use many words. He was silence. He was the embodiment of silence. And he radiated calmness and gentleness. So I have known him 5 years, and in these 5 years I never heard him raise his voice once or put somebody down. He never put somebody down. And there were thousands of people from all over the world that came to Nilambe that were seeking his guidance. Some people were not very easy, but I never heard him or saw him losing his patience. I found that really remarkable. This calm and gentle and silent, how should I put it, behavior or attitude. So this is something that really struck me. And also his non-judgmental attitude, his listening qualities. He was an excellent listener. So when you had a conversation with him, the conversations took place next to the meditation hall where his statue is standing. That was his room. And there he had interviews with people. And he was such a good listener. He would really make an effort to try to really listen what was going on with you and what you wanted to say. He had a big interest, a genuine interest in people. And as I said, non-judgmental. He accepted everybody. A great capacity, a great ability to accept others and also himself, because you can only accept others to that degree if you accept yourself to that degree. So that put people very much at ease, and myself as well. In the beginning, I was nervous when I had a conversation with him. I thought, okay, this is this world-renowned meditation master I'm going to speak with. But very soon, I felt completely comfortable. I felt completely at ease because he was so non-judgmental. And he had such a listening capacity. I learned a lot from that. This accepting, this embracing attitude. So very rarely did he share opinions or views. And as Ewan said, there was no agenda there. Sometimes I had the feeling there is nobody sitting here. There is nobody residing in this form. It was empty. He was completely available. An available presence, completely dedicated to and available for the person he was talking with. Very open, without a preconceived idea or notion how you should behave, what you should say. There was a very great openness. A few stories when Ewan was sharing these stories of Godwin, some came into my mind. So I wrote down a couple of words. I remember that once. So in those days you could do a so-called self-retreat, and that means that you could participate in the program just like everybody else, or you could do a self-retreat, which meant that you could go to a hut or a kuti, which was a little away from the meditation hall and from the kitchen, and you would not participate in the group activities. You would simply come to pick up your food, and you would go back to your kuti, and you would spend the retreat completely by yourself in isolation. So that was called a self-retreat. And I remember that once I did that, and yeah, you don't have any contact with people, you don't go to the evening discussion. There's also, of course, there is no verbal contact except during the tea break in the afternoon. But even that you don't have when you do a self-retreat. You're completely isolated, completely by yourself. And but you can have an interview with the teacher. So I remember that I went to Godwin and I said, I really struggle with loneliness. I feel lonely, and I hear the people talking when I go for a cup of tea, and I feel I would like so much to join them and to socialize. And he said, don't do it. Just don't give up. Explore this loneliness. What is that? Look into it deeply. So he encouraged me, and he encouraged us to look into our experiences deeply and to learn from them. So that is one thing that is I remember from him. So he encouraged me to stay in isolation and to look deeply into this feeling or emotion of loneliness. What is that exactly, loneliness? What is it that you miss? Another story that comes into my mind is he loved to play cricket with the children. So down the road, when you leave Nilambe, when you go to Office Junction, there were several houses, and some small children were living there, and they played cricket on the path down. So one day, I think there are even pictures of this that you can find on the Godwin homepage. So one day I was walking down, and he was, people were up there meditating, and he was playing cricket with the children on the path down to Nilambe Junction with the white cap on his head, with a cricket bat, and he had so much fun. The children loved him. And of course, there is one thing that I find typical Godwin. One phrase that I associate with him very much. Almost every night, when leading the Metta meditation, he would use this phrase, and I also use it when I guide Metta meditation myself or when I conduct retreats. Can you can you be a good friend for yourself? Can you make yourself your best friend? This is the phrase. Can you make yourself your best friend? Can you see yourself as your own best friend? He emphasized that so much. Almost every night he quoted that. Can you see yourself as your own best friend? So crucial, so important, especially for us Westerners who criticize ourselves so much. Can you see yourself as your own best friend? That's typical him. The quality of friendliness, the quality of metta. That is what he embodied. So at a certain moment, at a certain point, he became sick, as Venerable Dhammadipa and Ewan mentioned before. And I was going down by van with Upul. Upul was driving the car. And Upul went very fast, I remember. And as you know, it's a winding road down to Kandy, so I became a little sick because he was going so fast. And then I realized why he was going so fast. Because he received a phone call from the hospital saying that Godwin was in a very bad shape. So Upul and myself, we went to the Kandy General Hospital. And there were a few family members of Godwin there. And Upul parked the car. We walked to the room. And so we entered the room, and where Godwin was lying in a bed, and his family members were there, and Upul and myself were there, and then the other people left, and I was alone with him. I think he was not conscious. He didn't open his eyes. But in that moment when I was alone with him, I don't know if he could see me or hear me or whatever, if he was conscious. But I said, "Thank you so much, dear teacher. You were and you are and you stay a great example for me." And that is still the case. That is still the case in my life. So when I when I long, when I need for a shining example, when I long for a shining example in my life, somebody who can inspire me, he's the one that comes to my mind. And then later, we went back to Nilambe, and then he became a little better, and he came to say goodbye from us, and we were sitting in a meditation hall, and people had to support him because he could not walk alone anymore. So he was sitting, they put him next to the Buddha statue. He looked very frail, very fragile, very vulnerable. He had hardly the strength to sit up straight. And I remember his last words. These were his last words. He said, "Can you make meditation a priority in your lives?" I remember that. I was sitting on the first spot on his right side. So these were his last words. Can you make meditation a priority in your lives? He was taken to the hospital again, I think to a different hospital. A few days later, I was sitting in the office together with people who were managing the office, Rick, Jean, and then we received a phone call that he had passed away. His funeral was held in Lewala, which was a bi-center of Nilambe those days, a small meditation center that was affiliated with Nilambe. I don't know if that's still the case, not far from the Dhamma Vivekarama nunnery. So that is where the funeral of Godwin took place. I remember that his body was was lying there on a kind of bed, and were many people. Monks were chanting, and I remember that Carol was also there, who is still in Nilambe, I think now. So I think that is the last thing, that last time I saw him, basically. That was his when he had passed away already, during the funeral service in Lewala. So these are my experiences with Godwin. Maybe I can simply end with saying that for me he was an inspiring teacher, and he still is. So this was my sharing with you, and I suggest that Upul can, and I'm sure he can talk a long time because he has known Godwin the longest, I think, from all of us. So please, Upul, feel free to share whatever you want to share. So Upul, I just shared my own experiences with Godwin, and before that, Venerable Dhammadippa did, and before that, Ewan did. So maybe it's good that it's time that you do the same. What do you think?
Well, so as all of is the person who much always in silence, always in silence. So I never met a person who is so much engaged with the silence as Godwin. So therefore, what I have to say, of course, I can say many things. In 1980s, there was an Australian monk who lived near the Peradeniya University in a small bungalow, and I used to go there to discuss about meditation and Dhamma. And once I asked this question from him. In those days, J. Krishnamurti, he was so famous internationally as a spiritual, not teacher, I can't say teacher, but a spiritual person. And I know that the Australian monk, he knew J. Krishnamurti personally. Therefore, I asked this question from him. How do you think, dear Venerable Sir, about Krishnamurti? Is he enlightened? Because most people believe that Krishnamurti is an enlightened being. So I asked this question, and that monk told me, Upul, he knows, Krishnamurti knows so many things about the life and mind, but I don't think that he's an enlightened, because sometimes he get angry. Then I asked, dear Bhante, do you ever meet anyone who is not get angry? He said yes. Then I was so interested, so excited. I asked, who? Then he took his album, photo album, and then saw one of the photos, and it's Godwin. And I knew Godwin before that, because he's the librarian of Kandy Public Library, and I was a member of that library. Therefore, I knew him. And then, therefore, I said, no, it couldn't be. It couldn't be. How possible to how possible a person who is so developed mind, who has so developed mind, work in a library as a librarian and wearing normal clothes? So it can't be, it couldn't be. I ignore it. But I went there with a friend. He's also very interested. He was a seeker too. So he gets interested in Godwin. And next day he went, he told me, Upul, shall we go and see him? I said, no, I know him. He's a good person, kind person. But I don't think that he's a meditator or highly developed person, because he works as a librarian. He's an ordinary man. But my friend, he was so interested and he went to the library. And next day he came back. And we went to see that Australian monk. And my friend told this to that monk, "Dear Bhante, don't ask me to go and see any enlightened person anymore." And the monk asked, "What happened?" He said, "I went to the library and I went to the librarian room. Godwin was sitting on his chair and I was standing there and no conversation at all. And at last I said, I came to see you." Then Godwin said, And then my friend said he was waiting and waiting and waiting. No any other words, no response, no welcome. And then my friend said, "May I go?" Two that's all. So my friend said, enough with enlightened people. And later that my friend became a pupil of Godwin, and then now he's well-known meditation teacher and a Buddhist monk. Anyhow, so later I also came to Nilambe, and time to time I came and meditate. And after a while, when Godwin returned from South Africa in 1988 or 89, he was in his niece's home in Kandy, and I went to see him and I asked, "When are you going to Nilambe?" And he said, "Well, I don't know because nobody is there. I don't know what to do." Then I offered myself to him. I said, "If you need a person who help you to run Nilambe, I can come with you." And he said, then he was happy and he said, "It is like winning a lottery." And I also thought it's a lottery, winning a lottery for me. So then we came to Nilambe next day and he introduced to everybody. He introduced myself to everybody. Say, "This is Upul. He is the boss of Nilambe." I was so proud. I was so proud because I didn't expect such a big position. I just want to meditate, but my ego was so happy. Oh, I'm the boss now. And next day he left. Godwin left. So now I was in that hut, what Paul said, in the forest. I was there. I always like to stay there in the middle of pine forest with thousands of leeches. And one day I walked down to the meditation hall early morning around 4 something. In those days, the kitchen is inside the dining room. The kitchen and the dining room and the cook's living room and the storeroom all are in one. Next to the meditation hall, the firewood, and we had a very interesting cook in that time. I think Paul had many beautiful experiences with him. So I came through the kitchen to the meditation hall around 4:30 a.m. And then he told me, no sugar. I asked, what? No sugar. So then you have to go and buy because you are the boss. Oh. But I continue my peaceful walk to the meditation hall, and I was sitting. And that day was the most concentrated. My mind was so concentrated that day, not to the breath, but to the sugar. So this sugar, sugar, sugar. Oh, why he disturbed me? Why he disturbed me? And then the newcomers come. I had to show the place. I had to teach meditation to them and give answers to their questions and so many demands. After a couple of days, I had a big headache, serious headache, physical headache. And so everybody do their request to me, ask things, do complaints, and I couldn't bear anymore. And I thought I better to leave. And I said, whenever Godwin comes, I go, I leave. But fortunately, unfortunately, Godwin didn't come. So I thought he might come tomorrow, not next day. No. So I had to live with that headache, and I had to work with that headache. I came here to meditate. That's why I came here. I wanted to meditate. I thought Nilambi is so peaceful place, no responsibilities. I could meditate for 24 hours. But now, so much work. And no peace at all. Everybody said, oh, how peaceful, how lucky, Upul, you are. But I know I am not lucky. No peace at all. So much conflicts in my head. Nobody is there to say. And unfortunately, we have a time for working meditation. So that's the solution, what I could discover, working meditation. So why I can't work as a meditation? And when I was reflecting on this, then my headache has gone. It's a meditation, it is not a work, it's a meditation. And so big relief. And next day Godwin came. The next day Godwin, he came. But then I don't want to leave because no headache now. And in those days, I had so many philosophical questions, and I know Godwin is so wise person, and I used to ask those questions. And in the beginning, he answered to my questions. And later, when I raised a question, he said, oh, Pul, it's a very good question. And then I was happy. Oh, I made a good question. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting. No answer. No answer at all. It happened many times, and then I stopped to ask questions. And sometimes I was tired. In those days, I worked in the office and maybe I was teaching yoga for 2 times in the morning and evening. And after the evening meditation, I thought this is my time, my personal time. I would like to see the night and feel the night, look at the sky. So I thought, oh, this is my personal time. And before Godwin ring the bell, Godwin asked me, Upul, can you please lead the discussion today? And I just smiled to him and walked back to my room. And I was lying down and oh, how nice, how free I am. I'm alone now. And then I heard somebody's knocking the door. Tuk, tuk, tuk. I thought somebody is sick and I opened the door. Then I saw entire Nilambe people are there outside of my room. What happened? They said, God didn't ask us to come here for the discussion. And they further said, but Godwin said, Upul might be tired, therefore don't make him more tired. And now I'm really grateful for him. He trained me as a true spiritual friend. If you are a true spiritual friend, then you have to be available for all the time. You can't say this is my time, my personal time. It can't be. No personal life. Sometimes we had to go for outside programs, different organizations and different institutes and different people invited us to come, both of us. So maybe it's 2 days, 3 days programs. I was going with the big baggage, with my clothes, towels, everything. And Godwin just nothing. And when we went there, and even people asked, oh dear Godwin, where is your belongings? Where is your bag? And he said, no bag, nothing. Nothing? Then how do you change your clothes? Then he put his hand into one of his pockets and take out a small like lungi, sarong like this. It was in his one of the pockets. And people asked, that's all? No. Then he took a toothbrush from other pocket. That's all. That's all. He said, that's enough for me. And that's true. That's true. What a simple life. What a simple life and what a satisfied life. No demands at all. No demands. Always giving and giving and giving. When somebody asks some money, he just, even without counting. And after a while, he said, oh, Upul, no money for the bus. How do we go now? Go back. Then we had to find money to go back. Once he came, if this is too much, then dear Paul, please tell me.
No, I recognize so much of what you say. For me, it's perfectly okay. Upul, you can go on. And I think for the people also. Yeah, I see many people nodding, so please feel free.
Well, once he came back from India, IEL students from America, they did retreats in both Gaya and India to learn Buddhism, and they invited Godwin to teach Buddhism. So Godwin used to go there. He was used to go there in every October. And when he returns, once he was sharing his experiences that he flew to Delhi, and then somebody came and took him to the Delhi railway station from the airport and bought a ticket, first class ticket from Delhi to Gaya or somewhere. And he said, Godwin, this train is non-stop train, non-stop means intercity express train, and it goes to all the way to south of India. It just stops at Gaya station only for 2 minutes. Only for 2 minutes. So it would be in the midnight, not midnight, but early morning, around 3:30 or 4 something. Dear Godwin, do we need an alarm clock? And Godwin said, he said, no, I don't need alarm clock because I used to wake up in that moment, in that time. So he was sitting in the first class train, and some other passengers are there. And after a while, after a couple of hours, one of the passengers asked, you said that you wanted to get down at Gaya station. Godwin said, yes. We passed that station, because Godwin was falling asleep. And then train goes another 100 of kilometers, and then he get down, and no express train to return to Gaya. It's normal ordinary train, third class. Everybody is there. Some people on his shoulders, legs on his head. Even animals are there. Yes, goats are there. So smelly, no fan, no air condition. And Godwin, he asked us, Upul, can you guess how I survive? And we said many things. But later Godwin told me, everybody was enjoying except Godwin. Godwin said, in that coach, in that train, everybody was enjoying except Godwin. And he thought, why I couldn't enjoy? Because he was a first class passenger. He thought he's a first class passenger. So that's why he couldn't enjoy this trip. He was expecting first class facilities. And later he said he let go of that first class passenger. When he could let go of that first class passenger, then he became a part of the society. And it was so, it wasn't comfortable, but no stress at all. And same story he shared with us once he returned from Europe. After conducting a retreat in Switzerland, his friends again put him in a train to Vienna from Geneva, not Geneva, sorry, from Zurich to Vienna. And when he came to Vienna, at the immigration, then he realized that no passport, because somebody was stealing his entire handbag with money, ticket, passport, everything. Then the Vienna immigration officers and police put him in another train back to Switzerland. And at the Swiss border, asked, "Where is your passport?" He said, "No passport." Then they put him in a police custody, in a jail. And he asked same question. Upul, can you guess how was that experience? Which helped me to be there in a police custody? That we don't know. You know, tell us. He said, yes, somebody was stealing my money, traveler's checks, passport, air ticket, everything. But not my mind, not my mind. I was with my mind. As Paul said, you had to be your best friend. So he said, I am with my best friend in the police custody. So no suffering. I think this is enough, Paul.
Thank you so much, Upul. Yeah. So we have listened to stories about Godwin for more than an hour, for 1 hour and 15 minutes. I'm receiving many messages from people on the chat box. Thank you to everyone who shared their experiences with Master Godwin. Enjoyed and learned so much. Metta to all from Steffi. And then another message. Really enjoy Upul's story of Godwin from Catherine Chen. And Gita answers, I agree. Sri Pali says, very interesting. So yeah, many people have are sending messages in the chat box to express their appreciation for these stories on Godwin. So thank you for doing that. Now I think the time has come for all of us to share experiences with our own teacher, whoever that may be. Somebody who inspires you, somebody who guides you on the path, somebody who is a shining example for you, somebody who is important in your life. So don't feel shy to do this. So simply you can raise your hands and you can share whatever you would like to share. Please go ahead. Sri Pali would like to share something. Please, Sri Pali, go ahead.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me, Paul.
We can hear you well.
Yeah, this is some short experiences with regard to Godwin sir. Actually, I first met Godwin sir when we were at about 18 years of age, just after school. So we were very young, both me and my sister. And when we first came to Nilambe, we were very serious meditators. even being very young, we were very serious. And one day, Godwin sir asked us to come and have a chat with him in his in front of his room. And both myself and my sister were there, and we were thinking that Godwin sir is going to ask some serious questions from us, and we're going to answer well in a serious manner. So we were waiting until he asked some serious questions. But do you believe what he asked from us? He asked, it's very boring here, isn't it? Because there is no TV, no television. So we were actually astonished. Why was he asking the questions like that? We thought it should be a serious meditation discussion, but he only taught us how to take this thing simple, very simple, in a simple manner. So he just came out with the questions like that. So it might be very boring. Yeah. Hello?
Can you repeat the question again? What did he say?
He said, don't find it it's very boring here, because there is no television here, nothing to listen to, nothing to get entertained. So we were a bit annoyed also, because we were expecting some serious questions, we were preparing for some serious answers. So that was the question he made. And there were many experiences with him. And the last experience I had with him, when we were there in the Candy Hospital, we went there to see Gordon sir. We actually visited him at the latter part of his illness, but actually at that time he was fine. Instead of we asking him, how are you feeling now? He asked us in return, so how are you feeling? when we were visiting there. Then actually there was this nun named Anuradha. She was there, and she was asking, is there anything you like for us to bring next time, if you need anything to eat? So Godwin sir replied, you can bring some boiled gram when you come next time. So actually she couldn't fulfill it. Next time when we were there, actually he passed away. And the last experience which came into my mind when you were telling Paul about this death, about the funeral, and I was there as a medical student in Peradeniya faculty while he's passed away in the Peradeniya ICU. And I was told by one of my friends that Godwin sir is there, is not well, so you better go and have a look. But by the time I reached there to the ICU, I just saw his name appeared on the board in the ICU in front, the notice board in front of the ICU. So I just went in and I couldn't find Godwin sir inside. Then all of a sudden a thought came into my mind, then something must have happened. So I couldn't find him inside, and I saw Opus's mother is there, and one of the person who was known to me at that time, I can't actually remember the name, he was there. And I just, a thought came to my mind that something has happened, but I actually didn't know what to do next, because there were many occasions we were discussing about this death and passing away, and people crying at the funeral house, how they're crying. And Godwin sir actually, he actually laughed out with the experience he had earlier when we were discussing about these funerals and deaths, and the way people are crying for these for their lost relative. Actually, we were used to laugh at them. So when I was thinking about Godwin sir, what should I do now? Should I be sad? should I cry? But nothing came into my mind. It was just a blank mind. I mean, there was no thought in it, and it was a pure awareness indeed at that moment when I realized that Godwin sir is no longer there, no more. He is no more there, and I just went ahead and spoke to the people there and got to know that the body has sent to the funeral parlor for the rest of the things. Then I just realized that he is no longer there, but there was no emotions. There was no emotions as such which came into my mind at that point. Not a sadness, not even a sadness, nothing, but just a pure awareness. I just came out from the ICU and I just put my shoes on and I just slowly walked towards the bus station to go back to the home. But at that point, I still remember even his death taught us a lot, even the death. And he is indeed, words cannot express the gratitude I had for him, because even the death, even at the death table, he taught us. I learned a lot because it was just merely the pure awareness I had at that point, because there was no sadness, because I couldn't cry out louder, because at the moment I was trying to have some thought of sadness, or if I want to cry out louder, then this memory is coming to my mind, where we were used to laugh at with regard to these funeral houses, and the people are crying for their relatives, and how awful is that. Then he used to tell those stories to us in our discussions in BPS, and those thoughts came into my mind at that point, and that was a merely an awareness. So I actually it came into my mind when Paul was saying about his death, and the time period that he was there within this the latter part of his illness and the death and the funeral ceremony. So that is what. That's all.
Thank you.
From my aspect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Pali. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. There is a message in the message box after your sharing, Sri Pali. It's a message from Venerable Dhammadeepa. She says, all these sharings are wonderful examples that life is our best teacher. My deepest gratitude to everybody and everything who helped me on the way. Thank you, sister. So there is another one, another message I see. Oh, very long one. Okay, I'll read it out loud. It's from Steffi. I first got to know Venerable Dhammadeepa and Kema many years ago, about 10 years ago, when they attended the Godwin Memorial at the Lewala Meditation Center. Life turned miraculously and I was able to reconnect with them again, and they continue to inspire me and guide me on this path until today. I was able to get introduced to Claudia virtually, and her life experiences have taught me much. For 1 year now, I have been joining Nilambe programs, both Sinhala and English, virtually And this year I was lucky enough to visit the center with Kema. Upul sir was not there at the time, but he came the next day. Some of the experiences that were shared here today about Master Godwin just reminded me of my first experience with Upul sir. Thank you very much, Steffi, for sharing this. So when I understand your message correctly, people who inspire you and who keep on inspiring you are present here today during this retreat. Venerable Dhammadippa, Kema, and Claudia. Thank you so much. And there is one more message from Ineke. Thank you very much for organizing this retreat and for sharing the memories from Master Godwin. So happy and grateful with this retreat and your spiritual friendship. Metta to all of you. Okay, I see that we have time for maybe one last sharing. Is there anybody who would like to share something about his or her teacher, guide, example? Somebody who inspires you? Catherine Chen. Please, Catherine, you are the last one. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Paul. I just like to really say thank you. Thank you really to, first of all, to Mr. Upol, because he is my first and also like really important teacher guiding me into mindfulness. And that was as early as 2013, October. I still remember that. And that I remember the message that he gave me at the time is that you can heal yourself. I was going through a difficult time and I didn't even know how to practice mindfulness or metta. But I thought that, well, if this teacher mentioned that you can heal yourself, then he must know how. So that's how I, start on that road, that path. And I really, really appreciate it because this past year, I've just finished a mindfulness-based cognitive therapy teacher training. And as I am sort of thinking about this many years since the end of 2013, but like the first time I came to Nilambi was 2015 November. So it's a journey since then. And so it was so much that I have learned and I'm still on the path. And so really, really grateful because I think that it was all because of the inspiration and the transformation that had happened that Mr. Upol have guided me. And then through the process, and I remember that the 3 books that I read when I was in Nilambi that I borrowed from the library when I was also going through a very difficult period there. And one of the book is actually by Godwin. So it's a record of Mr. Godwin's teaching. And it was a very, very important teaching for me as well, especially about working with emotions.
Was that the gentle way of Buddhist meditation?
I cannot remember the name, but I remember that it was one of his teaching. It's probably a 1995 teaching that he had done in Europe, and it was recorded in a book. But I particularly remember that he talked about how to work with emotions, and also some of the story, like the story of the monk that. Like a samurai that came to ask the monk, what is heaven and what is hell? And I really remember that story from Godwin's book, and I was really impressed with it. It was a wonderful story. And so I just want to sort of like keep this short, but I just want to say that it's a long journey, and I'm really, really grateful that I'm on it. And I also would like to say thank you so much to the Sangha here. And tonight when I was listening to, I think it's Hagi singing, and I just want to say that it was really wonderful. I mean, I learned chanting from Claudia and also Sylvia, who's not here, but I also really miss, you know, like the time when I was in Nilambi, that Hagi have this very soulful way of chanting. So it's and I remember the teaching from Dhammadipa. So when I was so scared in Nilambi, and I actually ran down to Kandy for, you know, like because of my fear. And I remember both Claudia, but particularly Dhammadipa, was helping me and teaching me the chanting. And also like many of the friends, familiar names and friends that I have here, like Doris, Mandy, Winnie. And I have not met Mar and Paul in person, but that like is through the this monthly meeting that I feel like that I already like know you, because we're in the same Sangha, and it would just give me this wonderful sense that moving forward, that you know, when the chanting is talking about like seeking refuge with the Dharma, the Buddha, and also with the Sangha, that, you know, it made me feel like that the Sangha is very much there in the support. And so my lovely friend Claudia, where we actually share a lot of Dharma discussion with each other a lot, and was like helping each other moving forward. I'm just really grateful to be on this path, and that from the start from Mr. Upo, and I'm still continuing to learn and go towards, you know, that direction. That so thank you for also Mr. Godwin's questions about, can you make meditation the priority of your life, and can you, it was from Paul's sharing today, and then can you make yourself the best friend of yourself? Like those two I immediately sort of typed on my little calendar so I can remind myself of that. Thank you. Just want to say really thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So how Godwin used to say it was, can you see yourself as your own best friend? This is literally what he said. And I also have a request for you. Can you tell us very briefly the story of the samurai? It's a wonderful story.
Okay, so I remember the story that was from Godwin's book, that he told that story. So a samurai went to see a monk and asked him what the meaning of heaven and hell. So the monk started actually insulting the samurai, basically insulting the ego. So the samurai get really angry, so angry that he raised his sword about to want to kill the monk. And so then the monk said that that's hell. And so when the samurai realized that, he cried. And so when he cried, the monk said that that's heaven.
Thank you.
So that's the story.
I cannot think of a better way to end this retreat. Thank you so much. I have one thing to say before giving the word to Upu to conclude this 3-day retreat. But maybe I have a last look at the chat box first. Okay, sharing from Gerry. I met Upul Sir 6 weeks ago for the first time at Nilambe Center. I had to postpone my visit because I was taking care of a friend who was very sick at that time. Upul answered on WhatsApp. It's a meditation too, to take care of a needy one. I will never forget these words. They were and still are a great help on my path of awareness. Thank you. It's a meditation to take care of a needy one. Claudia sends a message to everyone. I'm grateful for being a member of the Nilambe Sangha. Thanks to all of you. So before giving the last word to Upul, I would like to mention something very briefly. I'm not going to tell a long story, just very briefly. Many of you know what I'm going to say, but it's important, especially at these times, it's important So our good Dharma friend and teacher and brother Upul has invested so much time, so much energy to make this possible in conditions that are difficult. Nilambe is going through a hard time. The whole of Sri Lanka is going through a hard time, but Nilambe as well. It's important that there is some financial support for Nilambe and for Upul as well. The Buddhist tradition has a long tradition of sharing the Dhamma for free. It is not charged, but people support the Sangha. Monks and nuns are beggars. So please, if you feel like supporting Nilambe in this difficult period and supporting Upul so he can continue this beautiful work that we all benefit from, you can give a donation, you can give dana, and you can do that on the bank account of our host, Mar. She has mentioned her Spanish bank account number in the invitation letter that you received. Thank you so much. That's all. Thank you. Upul, hereby I give the last word to you to conclude this wonderful 3-day retreat. And I also want to express my thanks to you especially, because you keep on doing this even though the conditions and the circumstances are difficult. You simply keep on doing it, and I thank everybody for participating.
Thanks, dear Paul, and thanks, dear friends. I think all are tired now, including myself. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to make you more tired. Well, yes, we had a nice, beautiful, and rich and friendly 3 days. It's so nice. I always feel this, that how fortunate I am. What a fortunate life I have. Because always I can live with meditators, spiritual people, seekers. It's not always easy, but always it's nice and beautiful. And I can learn a lot from you. Actually, I am the person who is learning a lot from the retreats. So don't be jealous about me. Dear friends, thank you for participating to this retreat, physically and virtually. We don't know when we have started this journey, and also we don't know when we can end up this journey, but we are in the middle of this journey. Meditation is not easy, and living is not also easy. Without meditation, life becomes more and more difficult. Therefore, no choice. No choice. We have to meditate. Dear Ma and dear Claudia, thanks a lot to organize this retreat once again. You're organizing retreats each month, and this 3-day retreat. I know you had to do a lot of things to organize these retreats, coordinating, arranging everything. You have done very, very well. We all got a lot of benefits out of your effort. We are grateful for both of you. And dear Paul, I'm always happy to conduct retreats with you. And I was looking for that opportunity in June, no? In June, to conduct a retreat in Belgium with you, but I think it's not possible now because of the war. So let's see how we do, how we can do. Anyway, you made this discussion sessions so colorful. Thank you very much, dear Paul. Thank you very much, dear brother Paul, for your support which comes from your heart. And thank you very much, dear Veronica and Hadi, for making beautiful and powerful chanting. Also, I think Veronica and Mar conducted some mindfulness in motion classes virtually. So, and all the participants, all of my dear sisters and brothers, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Let us live and let us practice as spiritual friends always. Thank you very much, and have a pleasant and beautiful and peaceful day and time.